Good morning, good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. Welcome. Welcome to this gLOCAL event in which we will discuss the issue of academic training and evaluation globally. What do we know and where are we going? So today's event is centered around a project that we recently finalized, in which we were able to develop the first ever global directory of graduate and postgraduate academic training programs and evaluation. This directory was developed through a collaboration between the Global Evaluation Initiative, Claremont Graduate University, and a network of global experts in the field of academic training and evaluation. And some of these experts are on the panel at today's event. So the directory is a global public good that will enable different stakeholders, potential students, evaluation educators and scholars, and other stakeholders to better understand the global offer on academic education and evaluation. And of course, when we develop this global overview, several questions arise around where academic training and evaluation is going and how can we strengthen it. To discuss these types of questions, we have gathered today a distinguished panel of speakers from different parts of the academic education community in the world. And I will introduce our speakers as they enter the stage. Our discussion today will kick off with a presentation of the directory, and this presentation will focus on the scope and the methodological approach for developing the directory. It will discuss its main features and also an overview of the main characteristics and patterns in academic education and evaluation across the globe. Then we will have 4 evaluation scholars and representatives of academic training programs and evaluation from different regions deliver concise lightning talks that highlight their experiences in evaluation education. After that, the panel will discuss some forward-looking strategic questions around where academic training and evaluation is going, where it should be going, and what we can do to strengthen it further. And finally, we will open up the discussion to the audience. And in that regard, it would be useful if you already start entering your questions during the presentations. So please use the Q&A box in Zoom to enter any questions that you have, so we can pick them up in the discussion. As we do not know how many questions to expect, we may not be able to respond to all of your questions, but we will have some space for them, and we very much welcome them. So now it is my pleasure to introduce you to the first speaker of this event, Marcia Joppert. She is a Research and Operations Associate at the Evaluators Institute at Claremont Graduate University, and the development of the directory was based on her research work in the framework of her doctorate research. Marcia, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning. So very happy to be here sharing the results of my study. And thank you, Jos, for being a partner on this. Very quickly, I want to talk about how we did this global directory. So first, we relied on existing directories in the US. Lavelle is here, is one of our sources. The Canadian Society of Evaluation. In Europe, there were some articles, and Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Celeste Giano had recently defended her PhD, also mapping the program. So we put all together and defined some criteria that I will talk later, and we updated this information and validated by visiting all the websites. Then, as we saw that probably we were missing a lot of things, so we interviewed CLEAR centers representatives and regional associations and networks, regional GOPs. And after all, GEI IT team did a web scraping, a crowdsourcing exercise. So we could find something more, but after that, so we finished the data collection process. So we have some definitions as a basis. So the first definition on what evaluation means. So evaluation refers to the process of determining the merit, worth, or value of something. This was the first definition in 1991 by Michael Scriven. And so we have other definitions. I won't read all of them, but so just to show that evaluation can be understood in different ways, and this is still an issue in our field. And by academic program in evaluation, we understand, so we use it, the definitions that has been used in many of our sources, multiple courses, seminars, practical offerings, and so on, designed to teach evaluation principles and concepts. The criteria used to include programs in our directory were first, programs offered by universities or private providers or non-formal providers were left out. So academic offerings as post-graduation, so diplomas, certificates, masters, and doctoral programs. Programs with exclusive focus on evaluation or evaluation being the dominant subject. And one or more courses with the term evaluation in the course titles. Time for completion, more than 3 months or more than 42 hours of engagement. So the product is this one. So probably you already visited this website. So it is inside the Global Evaluation Initiative or Better Evaluation Portal platform. So you can search by many criteria. By clicking the blue button of search, you will find other criteria than this that I showed here. So you can search by type of program, you can search by country, by degree type, by attendance, so if it's online or on campus, duration, and by university and by language. This is interesting because people from different language countries like Spanish or Portuguese or French can find their programs there. So these are the main characteristics, so the main features of what we found. Of course, so the main part of the programs are in North America. And after all, so Latin America and the Caribbean, surprisingly, have a lot of programs. And Europe, not much, Africa, 36. And surprisingly also for me, Asia, we just found 6 programs. And in Australasia, Oceania, 3 programs. Most of them are masters and 16% doctorates and 36% diplomas and certificates together. So we have still 22% online programs, 46 presential, and 15 mixed modalities like blended or hybrid. And we couldn't find information for 16%. And of course, English is the majority of the programs language, but then we have Spanish, probably because of Latin American, because in Spain, we just have 1 program. And French, Portuguese, 5%, and so other languages like German, Italian, Arabian. In terms of discipline, so most of the programs are linked to education, educational leadership, or psychology. And then the second group is social sciences, social policies, arts, humanities, human development, and then close to this, public policies, public administration, political sciences, governance, 10% economics, economic science, business, and then health sciences, public health is 9%, and others grouped at 16%. Well, that's it. This is a little bit of what we found, but so we hope we can help with our data, other researchers. So, and if you think you have information about programs that we didn't include, please get in touch and we will include. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcia, for this overview. Esteemed colleagues, please, if you haven't done so already, we encourage you to take a look at the directory. Feel free to contact us. This is a living directory. We will be periodically updating the information, and of course, we will be continuously validating and checking whether the information is still valid and current. So after this first introduction on the global overview of academic training programs and evaluation, it is now my pleasure to introduce our series of 4 lightning presentations from 4 evaluation scholars who have been managing academic training programs and evaluation. And each of them will discuss the experience and some future perspectives from the view of their own training programs. And it is my great pleasure to invite the first speaker on the virtual platform. Our first speaker is Professor Lauren Wildschut. She is the director of the evaluation program at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. Lauren, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jas. It's such a pleasure to share some of our learnings from our program in South Africa. Our program at PREST at Stellenbosch University has been running since 2006. So we have almost 2 decades of lessons for you. In our program, we have 5 research strands, which you can see are very local in nature, in that they focus on the African evaluation landscape, but also is concerned with things that are internationally important, like professionalization, for example, and evaluation competencies. Our program consists of 3 parts: a postgrad diploma, a master's, and a PhD in evaluation studies. I think you'll find it interesting to note that only just over half of our students come from South Africa. They come, in fact, from 20 countries across the continent, and of course have distinct cultures and language issues, etc. The next highest figure of learners comes from our neighboring country, Zimbabwe. So we've learned about so many challenges, I think, that were almost foregrounded and highlighted through COVID and post-COVID. And the one, of course, I've already seen a comment in the chat about, which is the lack of funding. People are looking for scholarships. We struggle in the South and in Africa generally to be able to afford to study. And so we have practical considerations of people having to travel on 3 buses from Harare all the way down to Stellenbosch and then paying for accommodation while they're there. And we just don't have sufficient funds to support students in this incredibly important profession. And of course, there are language barriers. In South Africa, we have many languages ourselves. So most of our students come in as English second language speakers. And we have had some students from Francophone countries, but they struggle a lot. So that is something that in order to allow access, you have to consider. Of course, there's a range of competencies because M&E being an interdisciplinary field, you have people who don't have big research components in their undergraduate degrees, and they struggle a lot with postgraduate evaluation courses. Of course, there are cultural biases and different ways to approaching evaluation. We have many people who come from the government sector, which would be the public sector perhaps for other people, but who focus mainly on monitoring and not on evaluation at all and have very little knowledge of it. All of these things in terms of language and culture impact on how people believe you should collect data, whether you should look at people in the eye or drop your eyes in respect. So all of these impact on the kind of courses we teach. But of course, challenges provide opportunities, and all these cultural and contextual challenges allow us to create an inclusive and solution-based course at CREST. So we're trying very hard to promote equitable access, and I will talk soon about an academy that we are developing for those people who don't meet the admission requirements for formal programs, and we think that will be a very nice way of closing some of the gap in terms of capacity building in the country. We ensure that our curriculum is renewed all the time and is focuses on cultural issues a lot, and ethics and the power of power plays, if you like, in data collection analysis are foregrounded. And we use local case studies that is from South Africa and regionally in our training. We find one of the most important things are the students themselves, how they learn from each other. And so many people who began the program in COVID said how amazing it was to sit next to their peers and learn from somebody who works in agriculture or health or all the different sectors. So we've developed 8, I'd say, key strategies in terms of making our course address both supply and demand issues. The first one is the foregrounding and use of African scholarship. I'm sure that you will have heard of AFRED, the African Evaluation Database, which was developed in partnership with ClearAA. And we have over 4,000 reports there written either by African evaluation scholars or practitioners. We've got about 600 articles and theses that focus on the continent or are by African students. We've learned about the value of face-to-face contact, but we've also learned to bring in support sessions for our students. The nature of our course is very developmental. We try and support students in their areas of need with additional online sessions, which saves them a bit of money as well. We keep our curriculum fresh and relevant by reviewing the curriculum virtually every year and our teaching methodologies. We incorporate case studies and other things that bring the practice, if you like, into the classroom. We host a series of guest lectures, and they are practitioners and experts in the field who come and speak to our students either directly on campus or online. And we have a special focus on a case study in our postgrad diploma, where we service a local NGO, and in return, they get some information, data, and tools from us, and our students get a really hands-on experience. Our latest initiative is something called the CREST Learning Collective. We have about 600, over 700 alumni now. And what we developed this collective for was so that we continue, almost continuing professional development. So we tackled AI last week, the topic of AI and evaluation. And so that keeps people learning and reading, which we think is important for evaluators. Our alumni also come and teach on our programs. Most of our teachers are actually our own alumni, but also they share personal experiences. Looking to the future, I touched on the notion of the academy earlier. These will be certificate courses, and they will allow for a pipeline into the postgrad diploma, but will also be standalone courses at an introductory and advanced certificate. And what it will allow is people to do completely online a certificate course on African-based evaluation. We have strategic partnerships with philanthropies and private sector organizations, which allows us to develop some of our key modules in the elective where we wouldn't be able to afford to buy in the expertise of outsiders, and that allows for us to really make sure that we up our game. It is the buzzword, AI. It is killing us all, but we are ensuring that we are looking at all software and technology solutions as tools for evaluation, so that we don't become redundant. I don't think we will be, but just to make sure that we understand them and their role in the curriculum going forward. And of course, we are connected, we understand, to the rest of the world. We have local issues to worry about, but we also are connected to things like the international IC, which is International Society for Evaluation Educators. I'm an editor on New Directions for Evaluation, and we've developed a thing called LEAP, which is a self-assessment tool for evaluators, which can be used against VOP competencies. So we are grounded, but we're also looking outwards. And thank you for your time. And that's it from Crest.
Thank you very much, Lauren, for this quite rich overview. And I particularly appreciate the strong linkages between your master program and the research agenda, and also your efforts to make the program as accessible and also as culturally responsive as possible, given the international outlook of your program. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now it's my pleasure to continue with our second speaker today, Christina Quantz. She is the director of the Center for Continuing Education at the University of Bern. Christina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me today. And I'm very happy to join this truly international group. I will introduce you to the academic training programs in evaluation at the University of Bern, what lessons we have learned over the past 21 years, and what we think the future opportunities and challenges may be for training programs in evaluation. Now I cannot move the presentation. That's a problem. Now, okay. Let me begin with the Swiss higher education system, because when we look at academic training programs, we need to understand the different local contexts and systems of these programs. The Swiss higher education system is similar to other countries' systems, above all on the left-hand side of the slide, the green part, in what concerns the undergraduate and graduate and doctorate studies. And what is a bit special about the Swiss system is the yellow part to the right. Switzerland has its own very structured degree system for postgraduate and professional studies. In order to enter one of these programs in the yellow square, you need to have some professional experience after your first degree. So the interesting thing now in Switzerland, in the context here, the national context, is that academic training in evaluation takes place mostly in the yellow square. Training in evaluation is not a first degree, but a specialization that you achieve once you have entered the job market and after a first degree, and when you use evaluation in your professional life. There are 4 different degrees in continuing education. You see them listed on the right-hand side, from small to large. All degrees come with the European Credit Transfer System, the ECTS system. This is a point system used by European universities that makes international education more easily comparable across borders. The ECTS credits indicate the required workload. One ECTS is approximately 25 to 30 hours workload. A huge challenge for all continuing education programs in Switzerland, so everything which goes into the yellow square, is that they must be offered at a cost-covering price. This is actually the Swiss Continuing Education Act that tells us that we have to offer all the programs on a cost-covering price. All the programs in the yellow square are in a way small businesses of higher education institutions with their own business models. The degrees are organized in a highly modularized architecture. As you can see in this graph, it's pretty much like a Lego. You can stack pieces together in order to receive something bigger. So for instance, you have 2 micro-credentials and you add a module on the level of the certificate and you get a CAS. In order to understand the evolving nature of academic training in evaluation, it is necessary to understand the multiple system connections of continuing education programs in general as an underlying dynamic. These programs are not only connected to the academic system with its science and research on the left-hand side of this graph, but also to 2 more systems that we need to keep in mind. The continuing education market, where other higher education institutions offer degrees in the same or in related fields. These competing institutions can become real competitors, or they can become cooperation partners. And I think this is a really important area here. We see, for example, a lot of cooperations in the medical field in Switzerland, and a lot of competition in fields like general management or marketing. In my understanding, in the field of evaluation, you would find both competition and cooperation. So I think it's still evolving. The last system connection is the labor market. Our participants are all employees, and they need the qualification for their professional life. They have specific education needs, and very often it's actually their employers who pay for the degree. So they want to cooperate with us as well. On this slide, you see how our program at the University of Bern has evolved over the past 21 years. Very shortly, in the early notice, there were 2 large degree programs offered, and the course topics covered the entire spectrum of an evaluation cycle in logical sequence. And from 2016 onwards, we could observe a preference of our participants and their employers for smaller formats. During the first wave, small and large programs were both demanded. These were the good years, so to speak, for us, of course, as a provider. And the large formats, and then after 2018, approximately, the large formats did not work any longer. There were simply not enough participants in our masters in order to offer it on a cost-covering price. That means the labor market did not demand a master's in evaluation. People found jobs without that in-depth degree. And we do not like what we see here, of course, but it is what was happening or what is happening currently. So currently we are experimenting in Bern with offering small formats only, but we are also trying to find cooperation partners for the larger formats, because we still believe in the large formats, of course. People need them if they get more specialized. And I think we need to cooperate in order to offer larger formats. This is what we are currently offering or experimenting with. It's our certificate of advanced studies in evaluation. And you see the key points of the program on the slide. The CAS, the Certificate of Advanced Studies in Evaluation, is aimed at people who commission evaluations or are responsible for the management of evaluations. You might have heard I hope, of IPTET. It's a short course and we might want to turn it into a micro-credential so that it becomes stackable in the future with other degrees. And we also plan to add a whole scheme of additional short courses, maybe micro-credentials, that could be organized in a stackable way for our learners in the future. And these are just some thematic options, but this has yet to be decided and developed, I think, during this year. Some trends and opportunities I see for academic training and evaluation. One big trend for any educational program is flexibility in the 4 dimensions I have listed. Another big trend is stackability. Learners want to stack small learning units into larger degrees, and we have seen this principle in the slides before. And a huge trend, I think, and an opportunity for all of us is the demand for transportability. Learners not only want to combine small learning units, but they also want to combine them from different institutions. This will lead to more cooperation between institutions, competition rather than competition, hopefully, and a curator economy in education. There will be advanced directories like the one we have seen before, but maybe providing even more features like counseling for individual learning paths, recommendations, like a booking.com for education. We have it already, it's not the future. We have a private provider already in Switzerland. It's called Everlearn, and I put the link to here. And it's hugely problematic if private providers start having business models in that area. So it's very important. But Jos just said that it's a public good, a directory. That's very important. I come to the challenges of the future. Cooperations are probably not in the DNA of higher education institutions, or not like one main characteristics. We have to learn that. It's also a cultural change, and we really need to interlock our competences in order to offer what the learners need. We have to find common quality standards. Maybe we have to accept a certain degree of deinstitutionalization in higher education institutions as well. This question is important. I think, who will be in the role of the curator? Do we leave it to private providers? I hope not. What does curating involve? And there might be some tensions between the 3 C's in curating: the consumers, the creators, and the curators.
Please round up.
Yeah, I will be finished soon. Quality standards I already mentioned. And then we will have some problems also for the learners, maybe. As much as they like to combine small degrees and to choose their own learning path, they might be overwhelmed at times because they have so many options. And maybe the overwhelmed learner will be someone we need to really accompany and really offer counseling as well. Maybe also with fewer large degrees, a lack of specialization and depth, we need still large degrees, maybe fewer, and in cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christina. A very rich overview of the complexity of higher education and evaluation. I particularly appreciate your point of positioning higher education and evaluation in relation to research, the job market, but also other higher education programs and overlap and potential competition. And of course, you touched upon many quite provocative topics and challenges going forward. So thank you for that. It's now my great pleasure and privilege to invite our 3rd speaker, John Lavelle, who is an assistant professor at the University of Minnesota. The floor is yours, John. Thank you. And I am just waiting for my colleague to share the slides.
Perfect.
Yeah, we are ready to hit the road.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, my friends. It's great to see you, and thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. I see we've got people from across the world, and I can't think of a better way to spend, for me, part of my morning than with all of you. So thank you. It's interesting as I hear the presentations that Lauren and Christina have shared already. because I have lots of notes and I want to react to all the cool things that they're saying and think, I want to take their programs too, because it sounds like they're doing really, really neat things. So I'm at the University of Minnesota right now. I've done a lot of research over the years on evaluator education. And I'll start with just a little bit about what we're doing here. So I started at University of Minnesota in 2017. And when I arrived here, in some ways, it was like a garden, because the programs, we had a master's degree, a doctoral degree, and a certificate degree that had been growing at the University of Minnesota since the mid-1970s. And we've been lucky to have wonderful students and wonderful faculty and wonderful community partners to work with. But when I arrived here, it felt to me like the garden needed some pruning. It needed some tending to. And I started asking the questions of, how do we know if this curriculum, these series of courses are really good? How do we know if they're having the kinds of effects that we're hoping that they're having for our students, for our community partners, and the people that they're trying to serve? So when I got here, the first thing we started doing was looking at the jobs, the market analysis, the opportunities, both in where we're at Minnesota, in the United States, and as best I could with my limited language abilities across the world. And so we started looking for, what do evaluators need to know? What do they need to think? What kinds of things do they need? And how do they position themselves to do good in the world and in the communities that they're trying to serve? With that information, we started to separate our master's degree track from our doctoral degree track. For many years, they had become intertangled and interwoven, and we decided to separate them out so that our master's degree students were focused entirely on the practice of evaluation, preparing people to work with stakeholders, to work with clients, to work with the questions that they thought were important. That's critical. You have to do that. And we would have classes like Introduction to Evaluation. We have a class called Evaluation Theory to Practice, where we talk about different theories and approaches to evaluation. And we talk about, where do they work? Where do they not work? And where are they really good ideas that need further development? That's fine. That's where our field is at. And that's a good thing, to look at that honestly. At the doctoral level, we said, yes, you need to be able to practice evaluation. Of course you do. Most of our students want to do that. But we also needed to prepare people to ask critical questions of the field itself. Things like, who are we as practitioners? How do we make a difference in the world? And how do we know that we've had a positive difference? So taking that evaluation lens that we are putting on programs and policies and working with our stakeholders and turning that lens onto ourselves. And that's very, very hard. It's very uncomfortable to do that. So we would we would develop courses like evaluation theory crafting, where not only are we looking at the approaches to evaluation, we are critiquing them from a research lens. How do we know if this approach is leading to the kinds of outcomes and processes it's hoping for? Well, we don't know that for sure. We hope, but we need to have better evidence for it. And for my doctoral students especially, they would do research on evaluators' values. We have one student doing work on ethics right now, another on positionality and indigenous evaluation. They're doing good things. So they're trying to contribute to the field at both the practice level and at the scholarship level. Next slide, if you please. Thank you. So when I look at the field broadly, we've had a lot of change and a lot of growth over time, and it's wonderful to see. And this is where being able to look at it from a longer term, a historic perspective is really, really helpful. What I've been seeing in the work that we've been doing is looking at how are we defining an evaluator education program? I have the definition that we've used in the United States: 2 or more classes with a specific focus in evaluation. And it's good for what it is. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I think it underspecifies what people need in order to be an evaluator. Because what we often see when we look at the courses and the course descriptions at the undergraduate and the graduate level, for the record, is that people are still mixing research methods, data analysis, and evaluation and monitoring as if they were all the same thing. Now, let me be clear. These are all very, very important. I'm not taking any of them away, but they're not the same. They're simply not the same. We need to do better about that. In my field, in the United States especially, we're still very rooted in education. That's not bad in and of itself, but what a wonderful opportunity for my colleagues across the world to think about what could evaluation look like from a policy level, from a health perspective, from a development perspective. How can the tools that we all use broadly apply in these different areas? And how do we know if they're really working? We have to ask ourselves these questions. I'm going to just allude to this. When you look at the historic perspective of evaluator education over time, there's growth, especially in the master's degree level and at the certificate level. There is unfortunately a downturn in the number of doctoral specializations in evaluation. And I'll get to that when I talk about the challenges, but here's me showing the slide early. Many of these programs are run by 1 or 2 very, very passionate people who want to do good in the world. And unfortunately, when they leave their institution, they go to another place, they go to another opportunity, the programs often die out with them. There's a certain level of what we call institutional fragility, meaning that our programs are not stable yet. The institutions that provide them may not have bought into them to the degree that they need to, so that they can survive the loss of 1 or 2 important faculty members. If you are interested in what some of the future of evaluation is, there's a new directions for evaluation that was just published literally just last week on the future of evaluator education. And this is something that my colleagues and I have been working on for years. It's finally in press. And what I really appreciate about this volume is that it's not talking about how to do surveys. It's not talking about how to do focus groups or how to do social network analysis. They're important, yes, but it's talking about what do we need to do as a field to prepare people to do good work. And you know what? When you look at this volume, it's all about being human. It's all about the person. Where are we going longer term? Golly, we need to think better about evaluation as an intervention itself. If I were to do an evaluation and I say, I'm doing it for utilization-focused approaches, that's wonderful. How do I know that my approach is really focusing on utilization? What evidence do I have to support it? I need evidence so that my own work can improve, because I am changing the very people that I work with, and I have to be very, very careful with that. And that brings in the humanistic perspectives. When I work with a client or a stakeholder, how am I changing how they think? How am I changing how they feel? How am I changing how they behave? We have to take these things into consideration and be very, very careful with them. Next slide, if you please. And that's where I start looking into questions like this: opportunities, challenges, really asking ourselves, who decides what the evaluator curriculum is? What are the courses and the experiences? And how do we better understand evaluation tools and processes, the theories and models, and the inquiry methods that we have? Thank you, Khalil. I appreciate you putting that in the chat. And for those of you who don't know, Khalil is one of our many wonderful contributors. I appreciate you, Khalil. The last part that I'll allude to right now is this. Are we trying to prepare evaluators to be generalists, or are we trying to prepare them to be specialists? Am I trying to prepare someone to do only policy evaluation? And if so, that's wonderful. What a gift to bring. Or am I trying to prepare people to do evaluation in education, in healthcare, in governance? That's right, Asimwe, training evaluators to be thinkers, but not just thinkers, critical thinkers, curious thinkers, curious about ourselves, curious about the ways that we show up and the work that we're doing. I can tell that my time is running short. I'll leave it at this.
Thank you very much, John.
Great. Let me say the last thing. I'm sorry. It's the last
Go
thing.
ahead. Go ahead.
A number of you have brought up the issues of finances in your chats as you put them in the messages. I appreciate that. I'm an educator. I run a program. The finances are a really, really big thing. That is exactly why I have so many projects, so that they support my doctoral students. What I would encourage us as a community of learners is to think, how do we actually provide a scholarship fund? How do we develop a scholarship fund for people to learn about evaluation, its processes and tools? And I'd be very happy to contribute to that wherever I can. And Jos, the floor is back to you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, John. Great thoughts, and you already elevated many discussion points to a broader strategic level of reflection. I particularly appreciate your last point. What do evaluation students need to learn? Do we need a specialist or a generalist focus? You can also pose it differently. If you look at the job market for evaluation, who are the people conducting, designing evaluations? Are they just evaluators? Are they audience specialists? What is the entire range of competencies that these people have, and which of these competencies need to be strongly emphasized in evaluation programs? So I think that's a big strategic question. Right. So thank you, John, for your reflections. I realize that it's very difficult to have academics stick to their time frame, so I'm going to give up on that. But I have some confidence in our final speaker, Nathalie Holvoet, who is a professor at the Institute of Development Policy and Management at the University of Antwerp. Nathalie has also been managing a master program for a very long time, and we look forward to her presentation. So Nathalie, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jos, and also for having confidence in me that I will stick to the time that has been allocated to me. So I will do my very best, because I think many of the things have already been said. So some of the things might be repetition. Okay, next slide. The general characteristics of our master program is, in fact, that it is a 12 months program, so a one-year program, and it is a advanced master. So meaning that the audience, the students we have, are students who have already a master degree or a 4 years bachelor. And they are, in fact, the audience are students with experience. And this is for us quite important, because we also, in fact, we have a very international classroom. So with people coming from different backgrounds, but also from different professional backgrounds, which makes it also interesting in terms of exchange between students. Now, what is very important for us when we do the selection of our students is the motivation. So for us, it's quite important why students want to do the program. And so for us, we are especially looking for change agents. So people whom we believe will use the study material later on to apply it, to use it on the ground. So that's quite important for us. Now we have scholarships, so scholarships from Belgian Development Cooperation. So currently we have, in fact, 10 scholarships for our program. So we offer 3 master programs, one in development evaluation, the others in other topics, but for each of the programs, we have 10 scholarships. So that is maybe something that might be important when we talk about funding of the program. The program is offered at IUB, which is at University of Antwerp in Belgium, but it has a very high international dimension. So the proportion of Belgian European students is very low. It is 10% of our student population. So it means that the classroom is indeed very international. So approximately 30 nationalities in one classroom. And the classroom is approximately 35 students. So many of the students in the classroom are from different nationalities, which is also displayed on the graph on the next slide, which I will just show and not discuss a lot. Now, why it is also interesting, why it is also international is because we also have a lot of collaboration with partners in the Global South. So we have collaboration with partners in Tanzania, in Uganda, in DRC, in Nicaragua, in the Philippines. So the program is in fact very much connected to partners in the Global South. And we organize research internships. So with the partners, which in fact some students can, instead of following research methods, they in fact do a research internship instead. We also offer dissertation mobility, so in which in fact students can also, for their dissertation, also connect or add fieldwork. Our program has a modular structure, so I've heard already from other programs that they also have this kind of structure. So, okay, next slide. This is just to show the international classroom, so I think we can just pass to the next slide. This is showing the modular structure. So what you see here is indeed the fact that we offer 3 different master programs, the one in development, evaluation, and management, which you see on the right-hand side. And you see that it consists of 4 different modules. So we have a first module, which is in fact general to all different advanced masters, which is one on theories of development and research methods 1 and research methods 2. Then we go to the second module, which is then specifically for students from the DEM master. We call it the DEM master, development, evaluation, and management, which focuses then on evaluating development effectiveness. So here we move beyond the research methods, but we also look into topics as evaluation policy, M&E systems, also politics of monitoring and evaluation, impact and use of evaluation, evaluability, meta-evaluation. So these are some of culturally responsive evaluation. So these are some of the topics that come in the second module. And then students can choose between 2 tracks. They can go for a focus on the national level, or they can focus on the local level. When they focus on the local level, here they get courses like community-based monitoring course, for instance. And so students have quite a lot of options between different courses that they can follow. And then the final module is a dissertation. So students also write a dissertation at the end of the program. Okay, next slide. In terms of general characteristics, so we have a very student-centered education, which is also possible because we have small groups of students. So this is not possible, I think, with very large groups of students, but we have small groups of students. And we focus on knowledge, but also on skills, attitudes, but especially also on networking, because we believe that networking amongst our different students and alumni, that this can also lead to the use of evaluation in their society, because our students are also differently positioned in their own society. For instance, we have students within the Ministry of Planning, but we also have students within an M&E, so in a directory of M&E. So connecting these 2 might in fact also be a connection between the supply and demand side of M&E, which can in fact also lead to really use of findings of evaluation. And the final aim is to contribute to changes at the individual level. Of course, we want that our students, that they find a good job. So employability is important for us, but also the contribution that they can have to their organizations by applying the knowledge and the skills, but also the contribution to society, so to development. So on the next slide, you can see a theory of change. So I will not go into the details, but this is in fact a theory of change on which you can see all these different steps and the different pathways that we hope, and in fact, the pathways through which we hope that our program has impact. And so this is a theory of change that we have made together with our alumni. So we have done, and I will discuss this a little bit further on the next slide, but one of the things we have done with our alumni is, in fact, with a group of 18 alumni from 6 different countries, we have done a theory-based evaluation of our own master programs. And so we have developed together a theory of change, and we have then also tested and validated that theory of change with our alumni, so who are spread over 6 countries. Okay, so the alumni that participated were spread over 6 countries. Now, what is the evolution and ways forward? So our master is a very research-driven master. So it's very much focusing on the nexus between education and research. But over time, we have also included action labs. So to find the balance between the theory and the practice, we deliberately did not want to be a real training program, but rather a research-driven master. But gradually, we have also included action labs because of the fact that our students really want these kind of action labs. So they want to link theory and practice. We also want to focus more. We are gradually doing this, but we also want to do this more in the future on global issues. So instead of having students of IUB, which are in fact mostly students from the Global South, going to other countries in the Global South, we also want to give opportunities to our students from the partners to come to the North and to in fact do evaluations on topics in the North. And so more focusing on the two-way, on the two-way collaboration. We also want to make more use of our explicit focus on multi-perspectivity. So we have students coming from different backgrounds with different experiences, and we have already used this, but we want to, in fact, work more on this in the future. So because we see that we can valorize more the experiences that we have amongst our students. Very important for us is collaboration, but also co-creation with our partners. So currently we, in fact, are working on a course on community-based monitoring and citizen science at Mzumbe University. And this will be a course that is offered together with partners from Uganda and the Philippines, and in which, in fact, we will try to link. We also have research going on, a citizen science project in Tanzania, and we want to link that project to the course so that the research project becomes a kind of action lab in our course that we are offering, that we will be offering at Mzumbe University. Okay, next slide. Okay, for us, very important, and in fact, this is also the last slide, very important is our alumni. So we have since, in fact, I think already this must be 10 years, we have started to invest in our alumni. We have a 50% doctoral, so a PhD holder who is in fact focusing on alumni, because for us, this is in fact the way also in which we believe that we can have impact is through our alumni. So many of the alumni are members of or even initiators of VOPE. In fact, Khalil is one of the IUB alumni. So he has in fact done a tremendous job in fact spreading evaluation in his society, so Palestine, but then also the broader MENA region. So for instance, Khalil is only one of our alumni, and in fact this is what happens to many of the alumni of IUB. And then something that I just want to put in the picture is the alumni barometer study. I have already mentioned this. So this was a collaborative undertaking. And the findings are interesting, of course, for us, but also the process was very interesting. And what we did, in fact, was using a kind of local in global approach. because we have all these local alumni teams, which are evaluators. And there is also a global dimension, because we are also with the 6 teams discussing about what is development for you, what is evaluation for you, what is impact of evaluation for you. There were some common elements because all of them had been studying at IUB, but at the same time also different perspectives because they live in different societies. And then something which also one of the previous speakers, Christina, has been mentioning, which I do not want to focus on, is the micro-credentials. Indeed, that is also something which might be give interesting opportunities. And we also will try to link with our short-term training program, because we also have a short-term training program which is targeted at VOPE, and in fact, in which also Khalil is one of the guest speakers in our training program. So the idea is also to see how we can link the training program to the advanced master program in the future, which might also indeed go through the opportunity of the micro credentials. Okay, so the next slide is just for those that might be interested. So we can in fact skip that one. Those that are interested can just have a look. And in fact, this was the presentation. So thank you a lot for listening. And I'm looking forward also to the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. Like all other speakers, you have failed to remain within the time frame, but like all other speakers, you have given an excellent, rich presentation. So thank you very much for that. I particularly appreciate that the program is really strongly linked with to long-term institutional partnerships with institutions across the globe. And I really also like your theory of change on how you think evaluator education is influencing professional practice and further down the chain also policy relevance and effectiveness. It would be interesting to compare it also to the theory of change that we have at the Global Evaluation Initiative. So, esteemed colleagues, please continue to connect to each other in the chat. I see that many people are introducing themselves. You are exchanging contact information, exchanging ideas. Please continue to do so. Also to the panelists, please continue to respond to questions in the Q&A window. We are now going to continue with the last part of our event, where we are going to elevate to the discussion from the individual programs, which already contained a number of broader strategic reflections, really to the strategic level. So, by way of introduction, a few words on let's say the world we are living in. We are living, as we all know, in a world that is really changing, a world that is getting smaller in terms of distances, but also at the same time bigger as we learn more about things across the globe, not just in our own backyard. And there are really important societal and technological changes that are happening that are affecting people's lives locally, but also globally. And we also know that the field of evaluation is evolving rapidly. The institutionalization of evaluation globally has increased over the past 2 decades. We have seen an increase in the number of countries that have adopted legislation or policies on M&E at the national level. Often this evolution has gone hand in hand with some kind of structure being developed for around M&E in government. So there have been promising advances, but changes also have been very uneven and certainly not linear. And of course, apart from that, academic education itself has been evolving, also pedagogically and also technologically. So as we know, the world is very dynamic. So against this backdrop of a complex, evolving world, against the backdrop of evolutions in the field of evaluation, evolutions in the field of academic education, we would like to start with a broad question to our panel members. Taking into account this complexity, how do you think will academic training and evaluation evolve in the coming years? What are some of the big challenges and how are we going to address them? So this is our first big question for the panel members, and I would like to start in order of appearance and give each of you a very brief moment to respond. Marcia, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, so very, very interesting questions. And I had the opportunity to analyze in more detail this data I collected. And I would say that definitely we have to include more topics like sustainability or equity, poverty in the programs. I also saw that this specific approaches such as utilization focused evaluation or participatory approaches are also, there are not many programs that so declare that they teach this kind of approaches. Methods, I think that more mixed methods than just quanti or just qual, and definitely including the practicum in programs is super important because it's how people develop their skills, and a link with professionalization, a link with standards or ethical guidelines, or so things that normally are VOPs are producing across the world. And online, more flexible online or hybrid programs. For example, in Brazil, we just have on-campus options. So this is a limitation, very serious limitation. And so many people commented here on the chat. I saw, so costs are very high. So for someone like me to leave his country with the family and pursue a PhD in another country, it's very expensive. So you need a very unique situation to accomplish this. So this is some highlights and challenges that I can say.
Great points, Marcia. And you refer to many content elements of programs. That's very interesting, of course. And your last point relating to costs, maybe we should have a growth in more local national programs. And we see that happening. It's very encouraging to see what is happening in Latin America, in Africa. And hopefully there will be stronger, more stronger programs across the globe on evaluation. So we don't need to travel that much.
Yeah, but there's still a question without answer. What is a good program? So how can we think about some quality criteria that are common that help people choose good programs? So we saw here very good presentations of awesome products, but I don't see this as something that is all over, you know? So I saw many repetitions of formulas of, so I don't know. I think this is a good question to answer by the field.
Thank you. I dare not even to respond to that question holistically. I think we have to make up our minds from the broad discussion and the multiple aspects that touch upon what is good in a program. Lauren, what is your take on this broad question regarding the future of academic training and evaluation?
So I think the world demands a very competent evaluator right now. Every day we're faced with more challenges, more competencies. We need this technology. We need to know these, fields we need to know about, these global issues we need to know about. And I think it poses a real problem. It's actually linked to Marcia's point about what is a good program. And because you have to juggle all the demands. And if you look at the competency frameworks from around the world, they've got the domains, but they never say on what weighting those domains should, be taught. So in our program, we're always struggling with trying to fit in interpersonal stuff. And I think it's critical as an evaluator, to have that. But is it something we teach in evaluators program? Is it something we teach elsewhere? That people, if you look at this micro-credentialing system, if you're building the blocks, Christina, what do those blocks look like to make up a good evaluator? So I think those things are quite tough. So that balance between the range of competencies and the weighting in the courses, because you need an evaluator who is technically competent, but also ethical, who has an understanding of the sector. It's just enormous, actually, the demands being placed on them. And I think that we've heard in the discussions that awareness of context is critical, but it's not only a geographic space. It's a range of spaces of a public sector context, of a, all the different kinds of contexts one finds oneself in. And I'm not sure that can be taught almost. It's on a sense of curiosity about the world and reading. And that's why I think my mention of the Crest Learning Collective is such a big thing, because I'm finding that it's like, if you're going to be a good teacher, that you should be reading a lot. You should know a lot about the world, not only preparing for the classroom. So it's that broader set of competency skills, I think. I think in evaluation, we've been a little bit doing business as usual, and that we've almost, I have a sense that we've been stagnating a bit. I feel like I don't feel like there's been an interesting idea for some time, but maybe that's my cynical old self. So I think we're in a bit of a quagmire, and I think we have to reinvent ourselves in a way to be relevant, to make a difference, to do the things that evaluation's meant to do. So I think we need, I think events like this are useful in that they give us time as people who work in academic programs to reflect on our practice, on the contents of our courses, etc. Just worry a little, to be a little bit uncomfortable. And I think evaluation needs a bit of discomfort. I think we've been, we get the same old people, and that's not an ageist comment, but I mean the same people coming out in terms of the key theorists, etc. We need new ideas from all around the world, not only the South, but the North as well. I think that the North has got very comfortable in their space, and we need innovation. We need to be very clever about the difficult tasks that lie ahead of us. And I think that the key thing that people have raised in their presentations that will get us there is collaboration. I think we're going to have to think quite carefully about the kinds of ways we hold hands. And I think there's been questions in the chat about joint degrees, etc. But I do think it is time to stop competing and start working together in partnership to build evaluation capacity internationally for all the stakeholders, but also to get a better product, Marsha, so that we can produce better evaluators and just not technically competent people. Thanks, Jos.
Great points, Lauren. Excellent. And what I really liked your point also on, thinking about what is a competent evaluator, and what can that person learn in a training program, for example, versus on the job. There are limitations what we can do with training. and I really appreciate your point also on evaluation being a little bit stuck. And we really have a strong need to reinvent ourselves given the challenges of the world. And yesterday in our opening event, we had one of the speakers, Estelle Raimondo, also emphasizing that we need to start taking risks. We need to really prove the added value of evaluation as a function, as a knowledge and an oversight function. And that means innovating, reinventing ourselves. And your point on collaboration is also very well taken. Hopefully we can talk about that a little bit more. Christina, what are your thoughts?
Mhm. I think I've already said a couple of things about what Lauren just said also, like that the co-opetition should be the new principle in program development, so that that really higher education institutions learn how to work together and really interlink their competences. That's I think, a guiding principle for the future. I think evaluation training is different, but also very much comparable to other trainings that are around. So I think the trends we have seen in Switzerland might apply to other countries as well, or other fields of trainings as well, because the drivers are mega trends. And they are pretty global and universal. For example, individualization and personalization of education. This is just a trend. And I think that our learners, if you want to offer learner-centered programs, we need to take these trends into consideration. Lifelong learning combined with longevity. We must prepare for people who remain in their professional lives much longer than we do. So they have a higher life expectancy. Thus, we need to adjust our curricula to this new reality. People who do not only learn at one moment in their life, like early on, like the front loading of education, but we have to really prepare to meet people several times on their learning journey. And we have to offer degrees accordingly. Not only just one big thing in the early 20s and then nothing, but we have to offer constantly, or to make offers constantly. We will have to offer learning units to frequent learners who are also used to learning. Yeah, I think that's for the moment.
Great points. Thank you, Christina. And also thank you for emphasizing again the importance of collaboration. I wonder if the directory can play a very small role in this, in trying to mobilize the global community of academic training programs and evaluation. Lifelong learning, very important. I was also thinking about Natalie's reference to their alumni network, the importance of linkages with employers, institutions that employ evaluators. Excellent points. John, you already had some great strategic thoughts. Would you like to come in now?
That's the problem. You ask an academic if they have comments. We never stop. I really appreciate just being here and being with this wonderful panel of really, really smart people. I'm really cynical. And for those of you who know me, that's not my normal stance, but I'm going to frame it like this. I'm concerned that as educational programs focus on the technical aspects of evaluation, whatever we consider good evaluation, we forget the humanistic part of them. And so what I imagine could happen, I'm not saying it does, but it might, you come out of a program, any of them, technically capable, but a real jerk of a human being. That could happen. Or you could come out of them as a really, really nice person who has not learned the technical skills in order to do both. And this gets me in a lot of trouble with my colleagues, but I think we need to have both. I'm scared of someone who's technically good, but doesn't know how to interact with other human beings. That really, really scares me. And I'm also just as, if not more scared of someone who's really, really nice, but does damage in service of doing good. Those both scare me very, very much. The other part that I would say that I've got pages of notes, that's the problem. I think we need to learn from not just our successes, the students and alumni and faculty and people who do good. That's great. We can cherry pick any number of people who've done really, really successful things. We also need to learn from the people who have not done good things, or the ones who have struggled in our programs. I can learn more from the student who struggles in my classes than the ones who said, this was easy, I got it right away. Because the one who struggles is the one who's telling me, hey, John, these are the things that you can do better as an educator. And then it's my responsibility to integrate that into the next course offering or the next class session so that I can. And that brings up, for me at least, who's really doing the teaching? I've got a couple of questions in here about certificates through VOPAs and things. And I think they're wonderful ideas. I'm nervous, though. I still get really, really nervous when you have people who are really, really good intentioned, who may not be educators themselves, trying to educate others, especially in a field that is poised to do so much good and is poised to do so much damage at the same time. When I look at the field of evaluator education, it scares me that I don't see any courses on how to teach. I think I have seen one course on how to build evaluation capacity, University of South Florida. Shout out to you, because I think you do it. Those are the only ones that I see right now. Although it's possible that the educational piece is happening at a more, at a less obvious level. I hope so, but we need both. And doing
Excellent.
it in multilinguistic things. People who can speak more than one language, people who are gifted and able to speak more than one language, man, y'all are going to do amazing things, and I'm so jealous. I'll leave it at that.
Excellent points, John. And I take your cynical attitude also in the spirit of the need to reinvent ourselves. And I think that's something that we are all really concerned about. I really like your point about being nice, and actually it's not a trivial point. Interpersonal skills are extremely important. They are very difficult, of course, to impart in a training program, but in the end, evaluation is about politics, but it's also very much a human activity where we really are concerned about the welfare of citizens, and we work for the common good. So interpersonal skills are really, really important aspects of our competency framework. Natalie, sorry, may I give the floor to you for some reflections?
Yes, thank you, Jos. Of course, I think that most of the things, if not everything, has been said. So I can only, I think, confirm some of the things. I would like to go back to the study we have done with the alumni, because in fact we have tested the theory of change. And so when we were looking at the importance of knowledge, skills, attitudes, because when we are talking about interpersonal skills, we are somehow also talking about attitudes, and then networking. And in fact, mostly we think about education in terms of knowledge and skills. But what we've seen in the study, in the evaluation, was that our students were in fact very much what they thought was very important was the part of the attitudes, and the part, especially the part of the networking. And I think this confirms the whole idea of the importance of collaboration, for instance. These are also things I just wrote down. So collaboration, and also collaboration between people from different backgrounds. So because then I think it's when you start thinking out of the box, that is when you get innovation. So because you bring in different perspectives. So certainly for IUB, this is for us the way forward. So continuing with the alumni networking, because that is also the way to work on lifelong learning. For us, this is an entry point into the lifelong learning, and especially also into looking what the impact is also of evaluation. So what is the impact at the individual level? You could, for instance, in the case of community-based monitoring, the women who are doing the monitoring can have an empowering effect. So looking more into these different kinds of impacts of evaluation that go beyond what we usually think about. Because that is also the way in which we can show also the value added of evaluation. So this is, I think, but for the rest, yes, everything that has been said, I can only confirm, in fact. And maybe, yes, something interesting, Belgium is at the crossroads of different languages. So There you have French and Dutch and yes, and English. So that is indeed, for me, I think also something interesting in Belgium. The fact that it is at the crossroads of different traditions and different languages, the Francophone tradition and the Anglophone tradition. Yes.
Thank you, Natalie. Great points, and also for sneaking in that last one. Interesting. John, you wanted to briefly reflect on or build on what Natalie was saying. Please go ahead.
If I could, Natalie, I appreciate everything you're bringing up. Can I reframe it a little bit in very slightly stronger, more aggressive terms? I would say we need to completely rethink the reward structure in higher education. So, for example, I don't know if faculty in your university are rewarded for community service, if they're rewarded for community engagement, for service learning. In my university, at least, I'm judged entirely on my research, my scholarship, my teaching, and only a little bit of my service. If we want evaluation to become more prominent, more of this umbrella ethos, we need to push, and Jos, I'm putting you on the spot here. We may need another letter from you on why should we think about redoing some of the ways that which educators are recognized and valued and rewarded. Because right now, I hate to say it again, there is little to no incentive for people like me, for people like us, to build these international collaborations, even if they're what our field needs and what our participants and our stakeholders need. And I'll let Natalie respond. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
Natalie, please respond, and then
very briefly. Well, we have that kind of reward structure. So at our institute, we are rewarded for education, for research, but also for outreach. So for us, it's part of our job, and so in fact, we are rewarded for this.
Great, thank you very much, Natalie. I think the last point also speaks to the importance of relevance. So evaluation in the end is a professional practice. So for us who are involved in academic training and evaluation, and especially you, because I've been less involved in that, it's really important to stay in touch with the professional field and know what is needed in order to develop relevant programs and prepare our colleagues to become competent evaluators. Esteemed colleagues, we are getting close to the end of this session. We had hoped to have a little bit more time for interaction, but I know that we have been responding to your questions in the chat. I know that you have been interacting among yourselves, and several of the issues that you raised were also brought up into the discussion. Please feel free to reach out at any point to us. We would like you to be in contact. Please visit the directory of academic programs and evaluation. And I would just like to close with a remark that I think this session really, again, gives testimony to the fact that we have a vibrant community of educators and evaluation. There's a lot going on. We have very interesting programs, but we also have learned that we really, as a community, we need to reinvent ourselves. We need to make sure that we are meeting the demands of the policy side of the world, and we need to make sure that we are taking into account the societal and technological changes that are happening. As a final point, I would like to thank our panelists for excellent, rich presentations and interventions. This was really great. Thank you very much. And also thank you very much to all the participants for your attention. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, and please stay in touch. Thank you very much.